Welcome back. My name is Liana West. I am a certified OEI therapist, an EMDR flash practitioner, a hypnotherapist, and I'm a certified specialist in trauma recovery with the American Hypnosis Association. I also have a master's of science from Cal State and another master's about the neuroscience at work. I wanted to talk today about trauma and what happens in the brain. To do that, let's compare a normal experience and how that gets integrated into memory and integrated into the past. When we have a pleasant or neutral experience, our brain starts processing it in the language centers of our brain, and it puts it into a narrative, like a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And then it takes that story and it files it away into the past in the past tense. These stories are written in the past tense, and they're organized in your memory so that you could recall them. You control when you recall those memories. But with trauma, you're not in control of the memories. When you have an experience, it registers in your brain as being traumatic. It overwhelms your brain so that your brain can't process in the same way that it does with a normal memory. It actually gets so overwhelmed that it drops the experience, and that experience shatters into all these fragments of what you saw, what you heard, what you felt. It doesn't get put into a story. It doesn't get processed, and these fragments stay in the present tense. That's why when you get an intrusive thought or those feeling flashbacks that you feel in your body, those always occur to you as if they're in the present tense, because the brain wasn't able to process them and put them into the past tense. So your brain and your body still think that they're going on right now in the present moment, because they're still in the present tense. And they hijack your present moment, and it's random, and you don't have control. And because these experiences have not been processed by that logical, verbal part of your brain, they don't form a cohesive narrative in context. They just occur randomly. This is why talking about trauma doesn't quite work, because these experiences have not been processed by that verbal, logical part of your brain that has put these experiences into a narrative. So talking about trauma revivifies these traumatic experiences, and that's why you feel triggered as after you talk about trauma, even though that's all we know. Because talking about things helps in other areas of life. We try to fix trauma with logic, and we try to fix trauma by talking about it, but it just revivifies it, and it might do more harm than good, because it puts your brain into this overwhelm, and it prevents the brain in that state of overwhelm from being able to process that experience and put it into the past. And so healing, the technical term, the neuroscience term is called integration, where we actually open up that memory and then, in a different state of deep focus, allow that experience to be processed and put into the past. If you're stuck in trauma, all those symptoms that you're experiencing, the intrusive thoughts, the feeling flashbacks in your body, you might be so overwhelmed that you're hypervigilant. You think that something bad is going to happen. And in really bad cases of trauma, you might not even be able to take care of the basic stuff like washing your hair. You don't feel like eating. You can't clean up. You might not be able to get out of bed. You feel unmotivated. You can't even do the simple stuff. If you've got a list of tasks, you can maybe make that list, but you can't get enough focus together to actually work on one of those tasks. When it gets really bad, you might even feel like you have to quit your job, or maybe you've already quit your job, and you're just in this state of survival, of hyper awareness. You're in this intense state of emotion that hijacks your present moment, so much that you might even be losing a sense of who you are. You can't remember who you are. You can't remember your life before you've had that traumatic experience. what I do is I take what I've learned from studying neuroscience at the master's level, and I take all my tools, the hypnosis, OEI therapy, which stands for observed and experiential integration. It's a trauma-focused therapy. I take the fast version of EMDR and I help people integrate that experience that they're stuck in into the past. The reason you feel so hopeless is that the past, that traumatic experience, hijacks your present moment, and it's actually sitting out there in your future. That's why you feel hopeless, because that experience of trauma is the future that you're living into. So you stay stuck in the present moment, and your brain actually needs help. You need help because it's very challenging to get a brain that's overwhelmed to be able to process and integrate that experience into the past. So you might need some help doing that. When that actually happens, you will feel like the past is in the past. It gets processed and put into the past tense. You'll stop having those random thoughts because you'll be in control of the recall, and you'll be able to access new possibilities for the future. There's space for you to get your sense of identity back and to create a whole new future. That's why you need to find someone who can help you integrate that experience and put it into the past. If you've experienced trauma or you feel stuck because you've experienced betrayal, connect with me on a free clarity call. I'll put the link in the description. Subscribe and like this video for more content on the neuroscience of being stuck and moving forward from trauma. Let me know in the comments if this neuroscience makes sense to you or you have questions. I'd love to hear from you, and let's connect on the next one.